What can having your home flooded by a hurricane teach you about your faith? Stick around, and we'll talk about that and a whole lot more with our special guest on this episode of Here at Home. Welcome to the Here at Home podcast, a podcast about the people here at McGregor, their stories, their ministry, and their love for Jesus. My name is Mark Bricker, and I'm your host for the Here at Home podcast. And joining me on today's podcast are Kevin and Angela Gillett. So glad to have you guys. Yeah, and I know that both of you are new members here at McGregor. How long? Like a year and a half?
I've been attending for just over a year, but actual members for only 2 or 3 months.
Oh, okay. So very recent.
Yes, very recent. She had a couple of back surgeries, which delayed our attending the new members class.
Oh, okay.
So we had to put that on.
Well, glad to have you now as official members.
Yeah.
But because being new members, I'm sure there's a lot of folks that might be listening that don't know Kevin and Angela.
Sure.
Like, who are they? I don't recognize that name. So let's give them an opportunity to get to know you just a little bit before we get started with what we're going to talk about. So Angela, I'll start with you. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Mississippi and was there until sophomore year of high school, and we moved to Ohio.
Okay, so from the south to the north.
Yep.
Yes. I just found out that you were from Mississippi. Where in Mississippi did you live?
Mostly in Clinton, a small town outside of Jackson, but I was born in Clarksdale.
Okay, yeah. So we lived outside of Jackson as well. So have a little. What years were you there in Clinton?
Probably 77 to
Okay, so that would have been before
87.
Yeah. Mississippi College, that's Mississippi College is located there in Clinton.
It is.
Oh, all right. So deep south up to the north. Kevin, where were you born and raised?
In East Central Ohio, a little town called West Lafayette. Spent 45 years there.
45 years?
Yeah.
So that was literally, you lived in that one town for 45?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, once I went to college, I did not go back to the small town.
Yeah. You were out of there.
Yes.
Where did y'all meet?
At the Ohio State University.
Oh, the Ohio State University.
Yes, they copyrighted that.
I know. Yes. All right. Was it love at first sight for you guys?
No. This was for me. We met at a euchre game.
A euchre game.
Played euchre.
Awesome.
We lived in the stadium.
Yeah, we actually lived in the football stadium.
You what?
It was,
that's
the honors dorm.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
But back then you could actually live.
Yep,
they had dorms.
15, technically where our dorm was.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was.
So like game day, you just walked out your door and.
When they did the wave, it sounded like the world was going to end because it was made of concrete, so the whole place just shook and rolled.
But nobody lives there. They don't have
They ripped them out for luxury boxes.
Yeah, of course.
A while ago.
That's crazy, though.
It was a cool place to live.
I guess so. Yeah. That really is neat. Neat little heritage there. So how long have y'all lived here in Fort Myers?
A couple years.
What brought you to the area?
So our sons moved down first, 8-9 years ago. 2013. Just out of the blue. He's like, I want to move to Fort Myers. We're like,
okay. He wanted to go to school at a beach.
Okay.
Yes.
So.
And then his little brother followed soon after. Well, I'm going to move to the beach. We're like, okay.
Okay.
And then he got married. The younger one did. And they told us they were going to have a first grandkid. We're like, well, we're going to move to the beach. So we came down here for little Luna. And she was born in February.
Of last year.
Yeah.
So they each came to go to school, but did both of them end up staying here?
No.
Okay.
The older one's in LA. No.
Okay.
But the younger one is here.
We
had a house on the island. We sold that and bought a house off the island where we live below our son, Justin and Emily and little Luna.
Okay.
So we live below them.
Oh. So you're on the first level?
In the flood zone.
In the flood zone,
yeah.
Which we'll get to in just a second. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about how you came to know Christ. Did you grow up in a Christian home or?
I did not grow up in a Christian home. A bus ministry stopped by the house one day and invited the kids to go, and I went there I don't know, probably a year or so, but eventually I accepted Christ in one of the services there and attended there for a while. I did ask to be baptized and stuff, but my mother said no. And then once we moved to Ohio, I didn't really have the option to go to church for a while. But in college, I met Kevin when I was a freshman, and he kind of walked me about through the things that I needed to do to grow in Christ, like read your Bible and pray and go to church and stuff like that. So I really began my faith walk then.
That's neat. Well, it's also neat that somebody was willing to go around and pick up kids and bring them to church, and that was your introduction to first hear the gospel and turn toward Christ. That's awesome. What about you, Kevin?
I was raised in a Christian home. My grandfather was a minister, so I was raised by a PK. Pastor Russell called me a church nerd. I've held many different positions, ministry, Awana, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And sound guy, tech guy, stuff like that.
Been very involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A hands-on person.
How old were you when you first came to know Christ?
I was
young?
13.
13.
I made a profession earlier, but then I was, gang baptized, as it were, with a bunch of my friends. And we switched churches, and I realized that what happened the first time wasn't real. I got wet. So I didn't get baptized until I was in my 20s, where we were going through a discipleship lesson, and we got to baptism. And I told him that story. I was saved at 7, but it's really saved at 13. He's like, but you said you were baptized at 7? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, no. He's like, yeah. So I got baptized till I was like 23 or something like that.
Yeah.
I got baptized for real.
So after y'all met there and your freshman year, was it your freshman year also, or were you a little?
Her freshman.
Her freshman year, okay. How long till you got married?
4 years.
4 years, okay.
Graduation.
Graduation. Waited till graduation.
Graduation day.
Oh, you got married on you graduated and got married on the same day?
I graduated.
Yeah.
So I was like basically the first person in my family to go to college, and everybody's still back in Mississippi. And so we were going to have a wedding later, and it was like, well, they can't travel that far.
They're all here for graduation.
Put it all together.
That's quite a day.
Yeah.
That's quite a day.
Okay, that's another thing I've not heard before, a graduation and a wedding on the same day. So living in the stadium, got a lot of firsts for me here. This is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for taking time just to kind of share a little bit about who you are. But I really did want to talk a little bit about what you guys have been through with Hurricane Ian. And depending on when someone's listening to this podcast, it could be several months removed from the event. But still, if you are a person that was here for it, just like we still remember Irma 5 years ago, for some of us, I remember Charlie in 2004 very, very well. And that's now getting closer to 20 years. So when you go through something, you remember it. So I don't think the time whenever anybody listens to this, it's still going to be fresh in their minds what they experienced and can maybe in some ways relate to what you have experienced. For some, it's going to be a lot more what you've experienced. Others are going to go, oh yeah, that sounds like my experience. We had here at the church, and I might have shared this with you, Kevin, I don't know if I did, but at least 55 or more families that were displaced from their homes.
Numbers gone up.
Yeah. And and just recently we continue to find almost every week somebody else that for whatever reason we did not know about. And so that just continues to grow. And so there are some that might be listening to this that can very easily relate to what you've gone through. But Let's back up. The days leading up to Ian, we all hear the reports, and
Could have hit Tampa.
Yeah, exactly. When we all play the game, and I'll say with my wife, if it's a week out and we're right in the middle of the cone, we should be safe because there's no way it's going to be come
that bad.
Yeah, going to come back. They never get it right. But what was going through your mind the day or two before Ian got here?
I think Irma really skewed us, right? Because they said, oh, there's going to be a 20-foot storm surge and no one will survive on the island, and the kids were living on the island at the time. And I'm like, you guys got to get out of there. Oh, we'll be fine. So when this one came around, we're like, okay, we're going to get some wind. We're going to get some rain. We were at Lowe's, I think, the day before.
Yeah, they had canceled school, so I was very grateful.
She's a teacher.
Oh, okay.
And we bought some tubes to put on the gutters. Oh, we need to make sure all this rain doesn't get up against the house. And that was our storm prep. That's what we bought. Bought one of those expandable tubes to go on our gutter.
Yeah. So probably a lot of people thinking, You're exactly right, because when Irma came through and they did talk about storm surge, but it changed past, and so we experienced very little of any of that. So, so not too worried leading up to it.
No, that's fine.
All right. Well, let's talk about the day of now. What was going on that day?
The day of, like I said, we live under our sun, and there's garages on both sides, and we live kind of in the middle. Well, I work at home, and I'm an IT guy. So we decided to convert the garage into my office. So we've been doing that for remodeling 2 or 3 weeks. We had just finished it. We finished the drywall. We were actually moving our furniture, my desk, into that room the night before. We broke a great big plate glass thing. We're cleaning it up. And we're like, oh, the storm's coming tomorrow. So the next day comes, and we're just like cleaning. She's all over the apartment, cleaning stuff up. We should pack a bag. We put a few clothes in a bag just in case we have to go somewhere. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. He did it. I didn't.
Anything else?
No, we're just being normal. I'd clean the house. Thought, well, we might get a little bit of water in here because sometimes water fills up the backyard. And so we tried to put everything up high, like on the table, and, so there wasn't anything on the floor. We picked up rugs and stuff like that. And then I just went and laid on the bed. I was reading a book.
Let's remind our listeners, or let them know where y'all live approximately. You don't have to give out your address.
So it's Iona, if you know where the Santa Outlet Malls used to be, which we live on the other side of the street. So about a mile from Bunch Beach.
Okay. Yeah.
So between Fort Myers and Sanibel, basically.
Yeah.
So we're pretty close to the water.
Yeah, very close.
And I think we're at 5 feet elevation is our backyard.
Oh, okay.
Give you a foreboding.
Yeah. All right. So storm starts coming in that afternoon.
I started taking pictures of the backyard, like you said. There's always been water after heavy rain, like a good foot in the backyard. I'm like, okay, honey, there's some down palm fronds. It's getting windy. She's like, yeah. And she's still, reading and cleaning. I'm like, okay, now the backyard is covered in water. And we had French doors out the back and a screened-in porch. I'm like, water's starting to come in the porch. At that point, we got separate texts from Emily and Justin, our son and daughter-in-law, saying, you guys coming up here? Like, we should come up pretty soon. So finally, Justin comes downstairs. There's a back stairs from his place down to ours, and he knocks on the door. Well, the water's already up to the first window in the French doors.
Oh, my goodness.
He's like, it's time to go. So he opens the door, and of course, the water rushes in.
Oh, no.
And she's like, I can't find my laptop. So we're like, I don't care about your laptop. I need to find my laptop.
It was work's laptop.
It was work laptop. Oh, very work. So we looked for a couple minutes. We couldn't find it.
Oh, no.
So we opened the door again. The water's even higher. We get her upstairs. Justin and I come back down just to try to get some things. And by this time, I think it's thigh.
Right. When I left, the water was at my shorts.
So to get out the doors,
the pressure on the door,
and they open out. So it took my son and I both pushing on the door to get it to open. And by the time it's that high, now it's like, now you're really fighting it because the water, and it's rushing all the way to the other end of the apartment and hitting the wall. And it's like, okay, we got to go. I mean, we saved a few clothes, my work laptop.
Not sure.
Because I'm a workaholic, I guess. That's what that means.
Well, he had packed his bag.
That's right. He had packed the bag.
I packed the bag. And she's the planner, which is really funny. And I went back one more time for like something silly like pillows, which, that's a sense of you, right? I mean, so when we were like refugees, we had our pillows, and at least that was something.
Yeah. So how high did it get?
It got just over 4 feet in our apartment. So anything you put on a table and it got above the kitchen countertops, it was gone. And
all the furniture tipped over.
Yeah, it capsized everything. Yeah. So anything we had like a bookcase or something, we put something up on top of it. It didn't matter. The drawers were buoyant enough that when the water got to 4 feet, everything just flipped. So, yeah.
And all that brand new drywall you just put in your...
Well, we had just remodeled the kitchen too.
Oh, really?
All new cabinets and countertops and stuff like that. It's just stuff. And that's a term we kept telling all of our friends. Like, oh, we're so sorry. I'm like, it's just stuff.
I guess a real nice blessing for you is that you did have a second floor to walk up to, because I'm sure some of your neighbors or other people did not have that luxury to...
Oh, we didn't even think about that, but
our neighbors mostly evacuated.
Yeah. But like, we had 4 vehicles out front. and most of them were totally underwater. So if the water would have gotten any higher, we would have had no way of escaping.
Nowhere to go.
No.
Yeah.
So all 4 vehicles, I think, there's only one sedan, it was totally underwater. 2 trucks, they were gone. Mother-in-law's vehicle was gone.
Interesting your statement. Most of the neighbors evacuated.
Well, I don't watch the news. Neither one of us really watch the news. And so we really thought it was going to Tampa. We really didn't expect anything.
Oh, it took a turn. Oh, it's parking on us.
Yeah.
It's high tide.
Last we heard, yeah. So your son and daughter-in-law, so you're up there with them.
And the toddler.
Yeah, and the toddler, right, waiting for the water to recede.
Well, even before that, I guess we should back up a little bit.
Okay.
So, I mean, now the storm's parked up on top of us, and it's, 150 miles an hour, and it's ripped off part of the roof and shingles, and it's leaking in. So we're trying to get buckets to collect those. But all night long, she just occupied Luna. Like, they just played together. The power went out long ago. Yeah. They have a big dog as well. And we would move from the living room back into the bedroom when Justin thought
the storm would get really bad and things were,
we thought the roof was going to go. And then I don't know what we were going to do. We were just praying, just please let the roof hold, please let the roof hold, because they have a big lanai on the back, and we were all watching out the window. It flexed, and then it flew over our house and over the neighbor's house and landed in her backyard. So the entire roof is one structure, just ripped off and flew away. So that's when we're like, are we going to survive tonight? I'm not sure.
Wow. Yeah.
So it finally subsided, and we all got a couple hours of sleep, and the next day it was still a couple feet on the street. So we all waited out just to look at stuff and went downstairs, and we're like, well, there's all of our stuff. And, it's the mud. Even though the doors weren't open, it was just full of mud.
Mud. Yeah.
There's mud everywhere. Mud. And they call it muck because it stinks. It's not really mud. It's like silt from it's nasty stuff.
So you began the process then of assessing, what the damage on your space, your son's space, everything.
Yeah.
And I guess it wasn't a real positive assessment.
It was.
Yeah.
But I think we were glad to be alive, and they walked around the neighborhood and saw 1 or 2 other people, and they heard from friends who were coming to rescue people. I mean, we had no way out. If you walked out to the road, the water's still up over your knees. Cars couldn't go down that road.
All right.
So.
Yeah. So what were some of the first things that where there's no power, there's no water. I mean, you've got nothing, no access.
Right.
I'm guessing cell service not.
It actually stayed up during the storm, and we were watching the eye part of it.
So you were able to have a little of that.
Unfortunately, we could see the rain.
So what are, the day after, now it's the next morning, next day, what were some of the things that are going through your mind? What do we need to do? How do we need to make sure we're able to continue to survive?
Well, we tried to see what we could get from downstairs, but really it was nothing. And then some people that we knew from the beach had stopped by for a while they had one of the giant trucks with big wheels, and they were going to help rescue other people. And then we knew of a family that was coming back to rescue people who had evacuated at the beach. And so we really kind of spent the day, keeping the toddler entertained, making sure that everybody was okay, and just waiting for them to come into town to see if they could help us evacuate, because they were bringing a truck and other vehicles to come and get people who had stayed on the island.
Are you thinking you're going to stay?
Initially, we thought we were, which I don't understand what we thought we were going to do without water or power.
Yeah. So at what point did you realize you needed to find a place to live?
I think that's when
they convinced us.
Yeah.
I mean, they argued with us for like an hour, and it's like, no,
we're staying. We're staying.
Yeah.
Lisa and Randy, they brought 3 vehicles, and it was late. Mm-hmm. It was 7 or 8 at night.
It was dark. I think it was like 9:00.
And they parked around the corner because some of the vehicles couldn't make the water. So he ferried us over, and he's like, you guys need to get out of here. And we're like, okay. So then that's a scary drive. It's 2.5 hours there's no power anywhere. There's no traffic lights. All the lights are blown down. There's no stop signs. Who knows if there was a stop sign where are you supposed to stop? People were flying through intersections without stopping.
And it's dark. You can't tell how deep the water is that you're going to drive into.
Right.
Yeah.
So they drove us to Sebring, which happens to be where my parents are snowbirds. They weren't there at the time, but our aunt also lived there. And we ended up staying with somebody in the medical industry.
We should say that Emily was 8 months pregnant at this time.
Sorry, did not mention that. Yes.
That's your daughter-in-law?
Yeah.
Yes. So now we're staying in a place with two doctors, basically. So she's in better hands than she would have been at a house without power.
So you're able to get out and be somewhere where you're safe. You're able to kind of recuperate a little bit, but you're still, for anybody that's away from their property,
Back.
there's just that desire to want to get back. How long did you stay in Sebring?
3 or 4 days.
No, because we went back on Friday, I think, because the insurance people were coming on Saturday.
Oh yeah, we jumped on that train really quick.
Yeah.
And since the cell service never went away, we're like, hey, we need to file a claim and we need to come out. And so we had all the adjusters out there within a week, which is a lot earlier.
So you wanted to get back. Now, when you got back, obviously the water's down a little bit better at this point.
My aunt who lived there gave us a car to use.
Oh, wonderful.
And it was a little tiny car, so it got great gas mileage for the 2.5 hour drive back and forth, which we made several times over that week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And we would just go and try to get clothes, try to get what we could, and take them back to Sebring and wash them in the bathtub to get all the muck off, and then put them in the washing machine. And then just, it was just like lots of driving, lots of working.
So when we came back, that's when, and it was mentioned on Sunday that the life groups, even without the church having communication, jumped into action.
What did whose life group were y'all in?
Dave Kreller.
Dave Kreller. What did your life group do for you guys?
So him and Ed and Jenny, when they came back, the wife and I, she started mucking out our apartment right away. Like we weren't going to wait. We weren't going to wait for the insurance. But when they came, they started helping us trash out. So that simply means everything went to the curb. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Because the insurance adjuster had called us and said, hey, it's good news. Everything's covered. I'm like, oh, praise God. It's such great news.
So Mr. Kreller had reached out to all of the people in the life group to see if they were okay. And when he found out our situation, people volunteered to come and help.
That's awesome.
So while he was there, with the Hortons, said, boy, we know somebody that has an apartment to use. And Dave's like, Kevin, you should. I'm like, I'm not going to, I'm going to feel really uncomfortable. And it was Gabrielle,
their daughter,
lady who just got married to the pastor's son.
Yeah.
So it was the Dempseys. It was their apartment. So she handed us the keys, Gabriella did. And she was giddy that day, and it was long before her wedding, but I got to meet her then. And it was a great apartment. It was probably 5 minutes from our place.
Wow.
So, we're not showering
because we're spending 6 hours in a car every day driving back and forth.
Back and forth. So that was a huge blessing after the car from our aunt. It was, now we have a place to stay.
So the class has been there helping you clean up, and then all of a sudden Dave mentions, hey, there might be something available. It opens up.
Right.
And
for like 7 or 8 weeks we stayed there.
Oh, wow. And it's 5 minutes from your house.
Yeah.
Right.
What a blessing that
was.
was.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
That really is cool.
That's been kind of the whole thing. We were just seeing God's provision throughout this whole process.
Yeah.
The way that he's taking care of us. There was no rental cars, and our aunt's like, here, take our car. There's no housing anywhere. We tried hotels, and we're told there's nothing within 100 miles. There was nothing, and then the phone rings, and
there's
so you're like, God just taking care of you.
And then the day that they needed it back, because obviously they had to come in town for a wedding.
Yeah.
And we weren't going to, that the school was going to pay for an Airbnb for us until the end of the year.
Community organizations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So now we have a place to live till December while we attempt to rebuild by December.
Yeah. So. How is that process of rebuilding? Because I know that's been hard for a lot of people, just supplies and people to do work.
So Justin had done some work for the owner of a roofing company. So
that's your son.
Yes. And they moved us up in the list, and I want to say we're one of the first people on the street to get a new roof.
We definitely are.
Because how do you rebuild a house if your roof still leaks? And it leaked a lot. The Blue Tarp people came out, it still leaked. So he had damage in 3 rooms just from the rain after the storm. And him and I ripped all the drywall out of all 3 of those rooms, and there's mold everywhere. There's no power. It's Florida. It's humid. Little Luna's room, their bathroom, the laundry room, we gutted it. Yeah. And the same thing with our apartment. Like, we weren't going to wait. When
you gutted everything.
When Dave and Ed were there, I'm like, well, I got a 4-foot level that I found outside and a knife. Let's start cutting some drywall out. So we cut all the drywall out. So we weren't going to wait.
Right, and we really couldn't wait on the roof because water was still pouring in. Like, we have videos where it's just running down the walls, even though the roof's got tarps on it. And so, I mean, you couldn't fix anything until the roof's taken care of, right? It was a whole domino effect.
Yeah.
So we're very thankful that God, again, provided someone that could come in right away and put a roof on.
Yeah.
So.
I think the theme is, I mean, I think I posted it once on social media, is God is faithful when we're not. And it's just stuff.
Yeah.
And we can replace stuff.
Yeah.
It's still hard.
Yeah. What are some things that the Lord has taught you, Kevin, through going through this process?
Are we really in charge? I mean, we think we are. We have this hold on life. We don't.
Yeah. No.
How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that, prior to this, we think, oh yeah, we trust God to take care of things, but really we were kind of doing things ourselves, right? And then you get to a place where you can't do it. You really have to trust God to take care of it. And he just kept taking care of it, providing in ways that you really just don't expect. I mean, I remember one day where Kevin was just really discouraged. You could just, his whole demeanor, everything. I think we'd heard that, insurance was not going to cover anything, and we had thought that they were, and just the constant being on the phone and then getting hung up on after being on a hold for an hour and trying to reach people, and then them saying they're going to come and not come. He was just kind of discouraged from that. And I remember in the morning praying that God would just encourage him and show him his love. And then we go to check the mail, and there's like a letter from the church there with a gift to kind of help us through the situation. And I think that just kind of lightened the load for him. Just such a blessing.
Came at the right time.
Right.
And our life group from our previous church in North Carolina also got together and sent us like a big box of gift cards. And that came
same day.
a couple of days later.
Oh.
So it was great.
That really is neat. Well, I mentioned at the very beginning about, the connection between a literal flood, because sometimes people don't go through a literal flood, but they experience some type of flooding in their lives. But y'all experienced a literal flood that brought along a lot of the emotional flood, but yet your faith is probably stronger. Would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would also say that the flood increased or flooded us in other ways, because the whole neighborhood, once people got back to their houses, kind of was reached out and helped each other. One of the gentlemen from a different church, they provided food that the whole church for a whole month, and then a disaster assistance group came out and helped neighbors and everything. And so we got to know the neighbors and get to learn more about them through this situation. It was, really, it's a blessing that you just don't expect to have happen in the situation. So.
And who knows what those relationships can lead to in the future for those that maybe don't know the Lord.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for sharing. Is there any final thought that you'd like to leave our listeners with that coming out of this, and maybe even what you're looking forward to in the future, or something from the past with the whole experience?
I think if there's another hurricane, we're leaving.
You're going to evacuate this time. Maybe.
Yeah. It is tough, but truly, I think he just strengthened our faith, and knowing that he's going to provide in ways that you just can't even imagine.
Yeah. Well, y'all have encouraged me because for you to sit there and go, this is just stuff. These are just things, and everything can either be replaced or it wasn't that important to begin with.
Right.
And it's easy to maybe say that, but to live that out is a whole nother thing. And y'all lived that out, and your faith was played out in a very real way. And I think it's going to be stronger because of what you've gone through. And I think people listening can be encouraged by what you've gone through to maybe hope to think, okay, how dependent am I? I didn't lose everything.
Right.
but maybe I do need to let go of some of the way I'm holding on to things.
Sure.
Because I think we can all kind of hold on a little too tight.
Yeah, we had a pastor friend from 2 churches ago actually started a GoFundMe, Nate Harmon. So thanks to him, I mean, we have a little more funds to replace
some of that. Yeah.
And I think, like what you're saying, I mean, as I listen to people at work talking about their situation and stuff like that, and they're all so discouraged and so overwhelmed, and then they can see a difference in the people within the place where I work that are believers, you know, they're handling the situation differently. And I think they see that.
Yeah.
You know? That's another situation.
The witness
yeah.
that you have. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to wrap up this episode of Here at Home again. Thank you both, Kevin and Angela, for being willing to share. I know it's not always easy to share something as personal as this, but I appreciate it very much. And thank you for being a part of our Here at Home podcast. And thank our listeners as well for also being a part of our Here at Home podcast community. And I'll always remind them, if you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, please do. Have you ever listened to any of our Here at Home podcasts?
I have.
All right. Wonderful. Are you a subscriber? Put you on the spot there. Is this the first podcast you've ever been on as a guest? All right. Wonderful. I like having that. For most folks, that's their very first time. Well, thank you, Lip, for listening, and we'll see you back here in a couple weeks, back here at home.